Hello everyone, this is Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier, here with you again, and we're going to have another quick thought, just something that I've been thinking about as I've been listening to a lot of the comments that are going on lately. We see that there are now articles of impeachment that have been put out by the Democratic Party against President Trump. And this just follows up with what they've been looking to do since April of 2016, according to Politico. And you can look up that article yourself. So throughout the entire time that President Trump ran for president, got elected, up through the midterm elections to this moment, the Democratic Party has been saying they need to impeach President Trump. And they've been looking for something that could justify that case. We've heard about collusion with Russia. We've heard about bribery. We've heard about extortion. We've heard every excuse that you could think of. And the actual articles of impeachment, the high crimes and misdemeanors, came down to obstructing Congress and also abuse of power. In the meantime, we're watching some of the Democratic 2020 candidates, like Pete Buttigieg, who are using the very same tactics that are now being used to attack President Trump for impeachment, and they're using that as a promise to get elected. Pete Buttigieg in particular is using intimidation and saying that there would be repercussions and quid pro quo if Israel doesn't bow to the more progressive viewpoints on Israel and Palestine. So that's interesting. That on one hand, we have the Democratic Party attacking a president on the worst, on the only thing they can think of, and yet they have candidates like Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg, who, in the case of Biden, actually did what President Trump is accused of, and in the case of Pete Buttigieg, is promising to do what they accuse President Trump of. And what's the net result of all of this? The net result is there is no confidence in the 2020 Democratic candidates. None. And I say that not because I think that, but because, well, one, we have Michael Bloomberg jumping into the race after a year of these candidates being out there raising money, trying to get attention, trying to get the interest of Democrats, not even the public, but Democrats alone. And they can't do it. Joe Biden, yeah, he's been leading almost since the day that he announced, with closely followed by Senator Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. But let's think about this for a second. They're doing so poorly that Michael Bloomberg, after a year of their campaigning, decided they can't win. Let me jump into this race because he thinks he can win, which is pretty interesting. And considering that Michael Bloomberg is a man who wants to dictate how people put salt on their food, he wants to dictate the foods that people eat. He is such a micromanager and believes so little in the freedom of the Constitution and the pursuit of happiness that he wants to enforce government control over the minutia of human life. This is what Democrats think is a winning strategy. Going to the far left, going over with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, going with the Democratic Socialists to promote socialism, to try and destroy freedoms. This is what they think is a winning strategy. And part of that winning strategy, since they admit they can't beat President Trump on the issues like the economy, on jobs. I mean, what was the latest jobs report? 3.5%, lowest numbers in 50 years, best unemployment for blacks and women and Hispanics ever. Okay, so they can't beat President Trump. They're so far behind President Trump, they're losing to him so badly that we just had the Mexico-Canada deal redone and finally supported, after a year, supported by the House and the Democrats. So NAFTA's gone, and in place of it is a better deal. So even as they try and get rid of President Trump, they have to support President Trump in doing better than anything they have done. So what's the net result of this? They're going with impeachment. The only way that they think they can beat him. Now, here's the interesting thing. I've been thinking about this, and I've been listening to several people, Tim Pool and many others, talking about this. And I look at the New York Post as well in some of the articles they've been writing. And the fact is, the public doesn't believe in the impeachment. Somewhere between 54% or 45 and 54%, depending on the poll you're looking at, the public doesn't support impeachment, especially before an election. Democrats knew this. I have to believe that they knew that walking into 2020, the public doesn't want to see an impeachment. They want to have an election. And if they believe that Trump isn't doing well, they will vote him out. But they can't trust that. They don't have candidates who are strong enough to beat President Trump. So they need some kind of insurance. Thus comes impeachment. With an impeachment, they can say, one, that they lived up to a promise that they made in 2016, which doesn't really do much except for the radical democratic socialist base. But also, they get to say, well, look, this is a bad guy. He's been impeached. How horrible is this? Of course, they didn't find impeachment to be that bad when it was President Bill Clinton. That wasn't a problem for Hillary Clinton. No, but it's bad because it's a Republican and it's President Trump. And they hope that that stigma would be able to be enough to stop him from being reelected. Because we all know what's going to happen. Yes, the House will pass the articles of impeachment. It will go over to the Senate, where it's actually a trial at that point. And the House, assuming the Senate, is not going to approve this. It's not going to go anywhere. And we all know this. And this is completely partisan. This is completely political. And we all know this. So what's the answer? Well, the answer is that all the moderate Democrats, including New York Democrat Anthony Brindisi of the New York 22nd District, he knows it. He knows it so much so that he is now gone with a group of 9 other Democrats who are all moderates, who are all in districts that President Trump handily won by over 15 points. And he's going out there with them saying, please stop the impeachment. My district doesn't believe in impeachment. They know it's a political trick. They know it's a political ploy. Stop talking about impeachment. Let's do censure. So in other words, they're giving up the ghost. This is a failed strategy. It's such a bad strategy that their own candidates who are in difficult seats are saying, let's walk away from this. Let's admit defeat, go with censure, and just let it go. Censure, by the way, would mean very little. I mean, how many members of Congress have been censured? Quite a few. It wouldn't amount to anything. It doesn't equal the impeachment. And even with impeachment, President Trump is not removed unless it passes the House, the Senate, which it will not. So again, what are they going to do? And it's interesting to me that we see this has worked out so poorly for Democrats that not only is Michael Bloomberg in a race after a year of electioneering, but more importantly, you have Hillary Clinton is now considering coming back into the race and saying, and reports are that she's actually getting people who say she can run, that she should jump back into the 2020 race, and that she should get involved and try and beat President Trump. After a year of their best, brightest hopefuls giving it their all. This is how bad the Democratic Party is. This is how bad it is that they have achieved nothing separate of trying to find a way to justify impeaching a sitting president under anything at all. They said there was bribery and that they could prove it. There's no charge of bribery. They said there was collusion. Adam Schiff said publicly, nationally, that there was proof of collusion with President Trump and Russia. And there is no evidence. We've had the Mueller report. We have had dozens of reports. We have insiders who have hearsay evidence. They heard from somebody else that there was a call, and in that call that they weren't on, they heard the president say something they didn't like. Okay, that's impeachable. This is a problem, folks. So what you need to do is let's check this out and figure out exactly what's going on. I'll talk to you again very soon.